Before we can talk about all the fun stuff of race prep, we need to talk about getting a car ready to work on, getting it ready to prep. And in my case, that meant a lot of rust repair because I live in New England and that's kind of expected, but also repairing the stance that had been done to this car. So all of the suspension had been completely trashed, and there was a lot of damage and a lot of negligence that I had to take care of before I could even start working on the car. Once it had proper suspension on it, and I had replaced everything that the previous owners had done, I could start tearing the car down to begin work. And essentially that just breaks down to taking all the panels off, getting all the fuel lines detached, getting everything that's connected to the engine, everything that connects the engine to the car detached, removing all the wiring, and basically getting the cooling system and air conditioning system out of the car. Once that's done, I can actually start working on it, and that's when we can pick up on today. The standard CRX came with a 1.5-liter engine that was unique in that it only had 2 injectors for 4 cylinders, and that feature makes it much more difficult to tune these particular engines than pretty much anything else Honda made. Coupled with 325,000 miles on the clock, this is starting to get old, it's leaking, it's not something that I want to deal with. So this engine's got to come out, I'll put a new engine in, new-ish, a slightly newer D16 Z6, and I'll have to do a little bit of wiring for that, but generally speaking, Honda makes it pretty easy to plug and play these kinds of cars. So CRX is now missing an engine, and that's a good thing. I got the dual-port fuel injection engine out, the D15B2, and the D16 Z6 will hopefully go in tomorrow. I'll have a little bit of wiring to do on that, and I'm still going to have to remove this passenger side axle. That did not come out nearly as cleanly as it should have. So with every Honda engine, every D-series engine, you're going to run into a problem where the top of the transmission right here gets stuck on the battery tray. And the trick around that is just to tilt the engine as much as possible, almost sideways, lift it out, and then you can level it off and pull it out. So one of the first problems that I ran into pulling this engine was the shifter linkage, which is right here. And that's difficult enough to remove when it's out of the car, so I didn't even want to mess with it while I was in the car. There's one small pin under this boot, which is a little difficult to press out, especially on older engines like this. The last big problem that I had pulling this engine was the rear stud that I was using broke off, and that happens. It'll happen especially on older engines, especially when you're in aluminum threads, and especially when it's been heat cycled as much as this has. So this has 325,000 miles on it. That means all of the metal is going to be a bit fatigued, and it was just time. So at this point with the CRX, I have the engine out, I have the transmission out, I have all the exhaust off, and what I need to do is start cleaning the engine bay and do any welding that needs to be done while the engine is out. Hopefully I can get a little bit of paint in here to keep it from rusting again, but realistically, this isn't a forever project. I have 5 days to prepare this to race, and in all likelihood, I'm just going to pull it apart again after the race.